Hello everybody, welcome back to another class. Today what we're going to be talking about is how you can measure the results of your program. As mentioned in the last training, there are several benefits to gathering measurement data that will help you garner media attention, raise funds, prove the validity of your program, give you added credibility, and help you improve as an instructor. It'll also get your participants excited to learn, and you'll experience many other benefits which we'll cover in this course. One of the key benefits is it will give you and your program credibility. What I found is that is a key distinction between someone that teaches financial literacy as a hobby and somebody that takes it very seriously. And this will help to position you in the light where you're taking this serious, where you're actually having solid results that you can report to those people that you're serving, and also those people you want to enlist into your financial literacy initiative.
One of the things we're going to be talking about is measurement types. What type of measurements are people looking for? What type of measurement can you conduct again to elevate yourself to that higher level of being a financial educator? We're going to talk about setting measurement goals as well. How do we set realistic goals that still motivate us as presenters and also those that we are serving as well? In addition, we're going to talk a little bit more about pre-event measurements. And then we're going to get into actual measurements that you can conduct through surveys, pre and post testing, and different things of that nature. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with quantifying the results so that you can actually take that data and see how it can support your future development within the classroom. And also, for those of you looking for more business development, we'll discuss how you can leverage the empirical data to support your awareness or sustainability of your goals. So with that said, let's jump right into the most important part we're going to talk about, which is why it's important to measure what we're doing. First off, it improves us as an instructor. So when you're getting feedback from participants that take your class, when you're getting their feedback from maybe from sponsors and from individuals that are watching you deliver their presentations, that's going to help you adjust each time to become a better and a more efficient instructor. One of the things that we'll be discussing a little bit as well is how do we prepare ourselves prior to class? What type of measurements can we conduct before we even get into the classroom so that we're prepared for those that we're going to instruct? We're going to also talk a little bit about how students can recognize their improvement, which is really key. Anytime that students see success or can see general things that are happening around them, this gives them something to strive for. It gives them motivation and also gives us motivation to continue as well. So when we can share our measurements with those that we're serving, all the better. They're getting that motivation right along with us. It also allows us to raise funds. And we're going to talk a lot about this as well. For those of you, again, that are on the business side, measurement is going to be vitally critical. They want to sponsor and support proven programs that actually are making a difference and making an impact within the community. They want to look for programs that can help people form positive money habits, as well as discuss unique ways to gather this data. Then we're going to get into how to attract volunteer sponsors and other people. Again, through measurements, we're going to be able to show them, hey, these programs are effective. Your time volunteering or supporting our movement is best served here with me and with us, whomever you're serving, that's going to be helpful. And then lastly, it's exciting to see our impact in the classroom and what we're actually doing for these students. And this is especially exciting when we get them into their longer-term measurements, when they see their long-term change in behavior. So what we've taught them, they're actually applying into their daily life. That's when it's exciting to me.
Now, we have been fortunate to be able to talk to financial educators from around the globe. When we talk to them, the first thing we ask is, how is your program doing? What results have you seen? Have you seen changes in behavior of those you serve? And oftentimes, we're met with no answer at all, or they'll say something like, yeah, the participants seem to like it, or yeah, I think they're enjoying it, and I think they're improving their financial capabilities. They don't have solid, quantifiable data, which is critical. So the difference between them and a certified financial education instructor when they're asked the same question, so we ask them, what results have you seen?
Well, they'll say something like, our pre and post tests show that we have a 30% improvement in their knowledge. And when we retested them over a year, we saw that they retained over 80% of the information. Oftentimes, they'll get even more specific and say something like, hey, we've been conducting a longer-term change of behavior survey with them, and we saw that their savings rate has increased by 20 to 30%. So compare those two examples. There's a big difference right there just on how you will answer a question once you are certified and complete this training. And you got to expect this is a question you'll get often from a variety of people, from potential funders of your program to potential supporters and other people of that nature. Today's age, people are looking for proven programs. And the way for you to prove your program is through measurement and quantifiable data.
So let's move on from the first section, measurement tools. What tools do we have at our disposal so we can enjoy the benefits that we discussed in our last slide so we can report effective and clear, concise results? You'll find out right now.
First off, we have surveys, very basic surveys that we can use in class so we can adjust the material for the participants. We can use these surveys prior to class to understand what they want to learn. And we can use it post-class to see how well we've done as instructors. It can be a very formal survey where they actually fill out something on paper which we provide in the curriculum, or it can be a general survey where we're asking them questions in class and communicating with them, getting their feedback. And then the teaching financial literacy session that will come up next class, we're going to be talking about getting feedback so that you can adjust your presentation within the class. So we have formal surveys, again, which are on paper, and we have time to review, go over, put on a spreadsheet, and see what people are thinking. And then we have more informal surveys in the classroom. I know a lot of our educators do this on a daily basis in the classroom, getting feedback from students, seeing which direction will be best to take on this lesson or on this coursework. Then we have pre- and post-testing. This is more of a formal thing. We're going to do prior to class and after class. We're going to give you some very specific guidelines on how to do it. It's really important that we have the pre- and post-test be exactly the same so that we're getting the proper results. This will give us an immediate feedback on how well we covered the material and how well the students in class were able to pick up the lessons. Longer-term measurements today, now this is a big one, sponsors, funders, all these organizations, they want to see that you're improving the behavior, the long-term impact of your program. There are unique ways you can gather long-term measurement data. Longer-term measurements tell us not only if they retained the lesson, but if they actually implement what they learned. For instance, if you host a class on savings, measure their savings account. If you're doing a course on credit and debt, maybe you can have them pull their credit report out before class and have them pull their credit report out a year later. Then, of course, we have the instructor measurements. This is for you. This is a way to improve your teaching ability and see what the students are thinking, what the participants think of your instruction. But besides a survey, you're going to get a lot of your feedback, and it'll tell you whether or not you've had pre- or post-test results. And again, the longer-term measurement, are you impacting them so that you're making a change, so they're actually taking action on what they've learned? Very critical.
We're going to talk a little bit about organizational measurements. It's really important with financial literacy that we tie in our financial literacy goals with the bigger organizational goals. And this is specific for those of you that are working with a larger organization. Say it's a nonprofit, a school, maybe you're a financial advisor and looking to gain clients or whatever. How do we tie in the measurement goals of the financial literacy program goals with the overall organizational goals? And how do we measure that to show the impact of our program, not only to the client's perspective, but from the organization's perspective as well? The reason that we do it, number one, it helps build people that support the initiative within the organization. In addition, it can show different things like return on investment or helping them accomplish their other organizational goals in a way that makes sense to them through financial literacy. And then there is partner measurement. Many of you will go out there and form partnerships and relationships as you're spreading the message of financial literacy. That's great. It's always important to consider their goals and seek those win-win-wins. How can we, first of all, help the participant achieve that win? How can we help them achieve that success and learn this information? Then we move on to the organization, partner goals, and your goals. How do we achieve wins for everybody involved? It takes a little planning and it takes a little time. But by doing so, you can be assured that this program that you're developing will continue for a long time. Those are some of the tools that we're going to be using. Now, I want to get into some of the goals and how do we set goals. This is really important part. We need to set, with any part of our life, we need to set some goals and objectives so we can get there faster. And this is especially true when we're designing educational programs.
One of the big things that we do is we always set our goals first and then we design material around that. So all of the curriculum that we produce, the events and the different things like that, we have very clear and specific objectives in place. And then we bring in the team, we bring in the material that will help us accomplish those goals, and then we create it from there. Same process I want from you guys. So set your goals that you want to have for those classes or the coursework you're going to be teaching, and then find that curriculum. Pull out those pieces that will help you attain those goals. You see, most people do it a little backwards, at least what I've found. They'll find some curriculum and then they'll create goals that align with the curriculum. We want you to establish clear and concise goals first, and then pull in the activities, lessons, and then the instruction techniques that will help you best accomplish those goals. Real critical piece. So again, to recap this, it's so important, I said this 4 times. Set your goals first, and then pull in the curriculum pieces that matches it. If you are partnering with an organization, make sure they are involved in the goal setting process. So if you're going into an organization, or say you're serving a local school or just going out to your clients, what are they looking to achieve? Help them. Let them tell you what they want to achieve. Then you can set your goals around what their goals are as well. They will feel a part of the program because you're creating it with them. They will feel a part of what you're doing, so let them know that their opinion is valued and that you'll be designing a lot of the programs around what they want. The next thing we want to do is develop our very clear and measurable goals. This will help us quantify the results you receive. So if your goal is to hopefully help some people in class learn more about money, that's not a very clear, concise goal at all. That's exactly the opposite. But if you say, hey, I have 3 hours with these students. My goal is to make sure they get a 90% or better on their post-test. We see a 20% improvement in their credit scores after 6 months, and they report feeling confident on the survey results. Those are very quantifiable goals. Anytime we can quantify that and make it very clear, then it really focuses you on making sure those objectives come true, and then you'll take those steps that are required to ensure that.
Maybe you decide to do another test after 6 months and you see their scores went down 15 points. Well, you may want to have a refresher course or a little web thing, or send out some information via email that will give them some quick tips or something like that. So there's a lot of things that we can do, when we have very clear goals and accurate data. If we didn't have these and it was just, hey, we just want to have them learn more, know more about credit in a year than they do now, it's very difficult to measure. So having clear, quantifiable goals is very critical in all of these areas.
It's important to ensure educational objectives align with the program offered. You want to make sure that what you're sharing with them and what you're saying is what you're actually going to educate the students on. You need to come through on that. Now, I want to still give you some flexibility. If you're in class and you have these very tight, rigid goals, that's okay. But be a little flexible and give the students some freedom to determine the course's direction. Of course, keep in mind your goals and try to circle the class back to the objective. This may be difficult initially, but as your teaching experience grows, this will become easier. If you have one class, 1 hour with them, and you have a very clear-cut pre- and post-test, it's a little hard to be flexible. But if you have a few sessions with them, and say the first session you're supposed to get through 2 topics, budgeting and credit, but they're still really interested in budgeting and they're asking really good questions about it, and they're talking about it in different ways, they're getting a very different, in-depth style of learning. You might want to stay there the whole entire class period and just get into that subject with them because you have other class periods to make up your other subject. Now, if you're just in there for a class period or a very short time, I would say to give yourself a little slack. So if you're going to talk about budgeting and credit, make sure that you pad it so you have enough time so you can still cover what's going to be covered on the pre and post test, and you have enough time to get off track just a little bit. A lot of people, especially initially, they'll fill the class and pack it with curriculum, and they feel they have to get through everything to make sure their pre and post test results are accurate. But what often happens is that they're too focused on the end measurement goal, and they won't be listening to the class and getting that feedback and having that freedom to take it where the class wants to go. So measure it. We're talking a lot about measurements, quantifying, analytical type stuff, but also I want you to feel that you should include some time that will give you the freedom so you don't feel pressured or rush through things, or make sure that you cover certain topics because you know it's in the post test. Again, with longer classes, longer times with people, we have a lot more time so we can make it up. With shorter class times, it's very important you create that initial pad right away. And also over time, you're going to get more familiar with your style of teaching, the questions that come up, so you're going to be able to better adapt to the time requirements of the class.
One of the big things, too, we suggest is to share the measurement goals, not only with those that you're teaching, but also with the organization who's supporting your endeavors. We like to share this measurement goals with those we're teaching because it's a very important thing. They feel a part of you. You've built up some rapport. After you've had a comfort level with them where they've heard some stories from you, some personal stories about you, they get to know you on a deeper level. You get to know them on a deeper level, and you become almost like friends. Then you could share with them your measurement goals so that everybody's working toward one common objective, which is great. They support you, you're supporting them with the education. It's a nice marriage right there. And also, it helps you enlist others in the program too. So if there is anybody else that's out there that you're trying to attract into the program, asking questions and doing surveys and different things is a great way to enlist them into the creative process, as I mentioned before. Realistic goals, very important. So you want to establish very realistic goals. I want you to think about these questions right now. So, what outcomes might you expect after a 1-hour class? What outcomes might you expect after a 20-hour class? What about when you're coaching a mentorship program? You're going to have completely different goals for each one of those, and I'm going to give you some framework that will help you later in the course. Many people think they can get by just reading the PowerPoint and the instructor's guide to prepare for class. These same people often go well over the course length and can't cover the topics needed for a good post-test result. It's important that you practice your presentation out loud, just as you would in class. Take time to pause for questions and answer them out loud. Yes, you are talking to yourself, but it's important to simulate a live class experience. This will ensure your class is properly timed out and your goals are realistic.
We're going to talk about gaining a deeper understanding of your audience before they get there. So before the audience arrives, we've talked about this before in the last session. I'll give you a hint. And how do we understand our participants before they arrive? How do we understand, their needs, their motivators, their current knowledge level, the challenges that they face, their willingness to change? How do we understand that before we arrive? We talked about it in the last class. What is that theory that we use, that framework that gives us so we can actually understand a person's willingness to change their motivators, their excitement to learn? The answer is through the stage of change framework, the trans-theoretical model.
Since we covered the components of this model already, we're going to be talking about how we can utilize it as a measurement tool. We'll do a quick recap of the details as well. So the pre-contemplation stage is somebody not willing to really change. They don't want to make that move. Their contemplation stage is somebody that is already starting to think about that change and starting to think about making that move. The preparation stage, again, it's somebody that's maybe doing a little action. Maybe they're doing a little research online. Maybe they bought a notebook to write down their goals. Something like that. Nothing major. The action stage is where they got some good momentum, and the maintenance and termination stage is definitely where we want to take them. The reason we're covering this again now is because if you conduct a survey prior to class, you can adjust the lesson plan, course length, your teaching style, and the overall program to fit the needs of the participants. Sometimes you may not have the luxury to conduct a pre-event changes of stage survey. In this case, expert presenters can actually do this during the first class. However, in advance is always preferred.
Let's talk through a few questions that can help you determine the stage of change of the participants. Do you currently have any financial concerns? You definitely would not want to ask this question out loud. It's important you protect people's privacy, and just entering a class, people pretty much may not answer this one. Many would not want to volunteer this information. But if you're asking the question as part of a survey, that's another story. The chances still are you may not get honest answers. Let's take this to another level. If you shared your personal financial challenges first and then asked them to write down the answers to this question, do you think you would get more people answering this honestly? Most likely you would, because people naturally want to reciprocate openness. Would you be interested in a program that can help you overcome your financial challenges? If someone's not willing to change, they're going to say, no, I'm not interested. If someone's already taking action, say, yeah, this is what we've done, and I want to learn more, because they're going to be hungry. How can learning about money help you? This is going to be a very important piece, because some people say, I don't know if it can really help me. They might be at that tipping point to where you can adjust your presentation to be more benefit-driven and show them the benefits in more detail.
Take a look at the Stages of Change report we put together for a big international project we worked on. To put this report together, we surveyed over 1,000 people in face-to-face interview style format. Now take a look at the pie chart, and this is really what I want to focus on. It basically asks, would you want to participate in financial literacy training? That was the question. And the numbers here show that, hey, about 33% said no, they weren't interested. The other 67% said yes, they were interested. So we had at least 67% of people that at least from the surface were willing to make that change, were willing to gain that knowledge, and wanted to attend an event, which is great. That's the audience we wanted to serve. Now, right below here, you see that we asked the 33% of people that said no, they weren't interested in participating in training. We asked them if they would get a cash stipend, lunch, or some benefit. Would they attend? And we had about half of them say yes, they would want to attend. Now, I'm going to pose a question to you, and this question is, when you're initially conducting your events and you want to show the best pre- and post-test results, would you offer an incentive to get the people that may not be interested in learning the lessons but more interested in the stipend? Well, I think the answer is clear. To demonstrate the best results, we wouldn't want those people that are just interested in taking the class to get the stipend. We want that 67% that express interest in attending financial literacy training. So it's really important when you're conducting and planning out your first initiative that you're thinking it through. I know a lot of people are out there planning their first initiative, and let's say you're thinking about a college program, and let's say you're thinking about giving free pizza away. Again, if you're looking for the best pre- and post-test results, do you want to attract those that may not be completely interested in the subject matter? Now, if you're not doing any pre- and post-tests that would determine funding or reflect on your program, hey, you can invite everyone, that's fine. But for those of you that need good results, it's going to be critical you invite those people that are in the later stages of change.
So let's talk about surveys, pre- and post-testing, so you have a better handle on how to conduct that. Again, pre-testing for those of you not in the educational field, what we're trying to do there is get a baseline knowledge of where they are. So before you start any instruction at all within the classroom, they're actually completing a pre-test, which can be any number of questions written in any way. One of the critical things with the pre- and post-testing is that they need to be identical. That's going to get you accurate data. If you ask the question any differently, if you ask a different type of question, that information that you put together is not accurate. So they need to be identical. That's really important. Again, in our curriculum and material, there's pre and post tests that you could choose from, but the key is to make sure you're pulling out the questions that you're going to address in the class. I've had it happen personally before. You get so much into the teaching moment and you've got a great class and you see a huge improvement being in the pre and post test scores. And what will happen is you'll see one test score that's way down because you forgot to cover that item in class. So that's a good indicator. You need to know that you missed this in class, or maybe you didn't cover it very well. Okay, a couple of things with the post test. And I want to get to this because we've seen it here before several times. You get a bad post-test result from a simple mistake that you could have avoided. One of the big ones we see is that once you finish the post-test, you can leave. What happens is that if people just want to get out of class, maybe if you're teaching a class on a Friday, or if it's at the end of school, or if you've got a long weekend ahead for adults or something like that, they just want to leave. So what will happen? They'll just answer very quickly and get out of there, so be very cautious about that. Also, we like to ask that they complete the survey prior to completing the post-test. And one of the things that they'll do here is a little more thinking and a little more writing. Often when they're finished with the post-test, they're going to want to just get up and leave. So after they get done with the survey, they don't want to spend as much time writing out suggestions that can help really improve your class in your course. So we suggest survey first, then post-test. So if we're doing an hour-long class, how long should the pre- and post-test be? 3 to 5 questions. If we're doing a half-day class, maybe 10 questions. And length is very important because if you're doing an hour-long class and you're giving them 20 questions, well, you just ate up 20 minutes at the beginning or 20 minutes at the end. So again, we're not only thinking about the result, we're thinking about the time we actually have in front of them delivering material that can help them.
Let's discuss testing. I'm going to share with you what the NFEC likes to measure for our test. First, we like to measure subject knowledge. Next, motivation to learn. And lastly, recognition of the first step. This is a very unique mix that we include in all our tests. Now, subject knowledge, that's typically what's done out there as far as personal finance tests go. Our tests always have that element of subject knowledge, and we think it's critical. They need to understand the subject, and they need to prove it to us. Our pre- and post-testing will help us determine if they picked up the knowledge they needed to help them make financial decisions. So it's always an important, critical piece to include. The next thing we'd like to do is sandwich that with the motivation to learn. Why are they motivated to learn the subject? What are their motivators? What benefits do they perceive with picking up this coursework? And a lot of this we discussed already on the trans-theoretical model. But by conducting pre- and post-tests, we can actually measure and see their changes in their thought process and their motivation to learn. So it's really critical to include some components that ask them questions on why they want to change, why they want to make different financial choices. Lastly, the recognition of the first step is very, very critical. Many people, they'll go through these intensive financial education workshops and they'll have all this knowledge, they'll be motivated to learn, but they can't recognize that first step. So let's say somebody attended a workshop on how to buy a home. They're excited, they have this knowledge, but what is that first step? If they don't know, oftentimes what happens is people freeze. They don't take that first step and that momentum never gets going. A lot of what we do when we're teaching personal finance is getting that positive momentum going. So the quicker we can identify if they can recognize that first step. Is there a first step in that example to find a realtor? Is it to qualify for a loan? Is it to check their credit? What is that first step for them? If they can recognize that, we know they're likely going to be more successful in taking future action. For those of you creating your own testing, make sure you include those 3 elements I discussed before. If you're utilizing our testing, again, it's built into the curriculum and lesson plans already. You can use that as a question bank. As you're pulling out these different questions, think about these 3 categories that these test questions fall into, and strive to achieve balance in your testing. This will help you understand your audience better. You'll be able to quantify these results and also be able to separate them into categories as far as what you taught them. You'll be able to gain a solid understanding of your complete participants' knowledge base.
I'm going to show you a sample post-test report that we put together for the Simon Family Foundation. This was a 3-hour event called the Real Money Experience that we put together, which was a live interactive event where students go through 12 different booths and make decisions about what they'll face when they're out on their own. So it's mainly geared for high school and college-age students. With the Simon Family Foundation, we're going on our 4th year. They are a great organization to work with. But I want to point out one of the mistakes that we corrected here within the last year. Here's a look at the event.
It's been fun. It's a cool experience.
Learning about investing, how life is, and how to actually put money into work.
It's kind of shocking though to see the prices and like what our parents deal with every day. Yeah, and
Nothing like this when I was growing up. No one took me aside and said, here, you need to put away $50, $100 a month. And when they see what's possible for them over the next 20, 30 years, it's the looks in their faces are like, wow, I didn't even think that was possible.
I wish I had experience like this.
This is stuff that we're going to need to know for our future. And so it's very helpful.
Because all these booths that are out here and all the knowledge you can pick up from each one isn't something you learn in a classroom. So you really need an event like this.
With that said, walk with me. Pull up a chair, have a drink, build and talk with me. Matter of fact, walk with me. Feel the tension release and say peace.
It's interesting to see how the future's going to look like, actually. It's fun.
When you're engaging with them, that's a whole different thing. So that really makes it more palatable, I think, and they accept it better and they learn more.
Great credit. You're scoring 740. It's been great. The kids have been like in shock with how good credit really helps you. Like for instance, with the car payment.
You want to pick a career that's focused on what you love and what you're most passionate about doing.
Criminal justice.
Very cool.
Maybe it's like college or a pediatrician because I love kids and people. So I'm between the two.
A psychiatrist.
Well, it's kind of hard getting only $3,500 a month. Also, with all the tax, all the Medicare.
Their choices are going to impact every aspect of their life, not just they're going to get a salary and they get to spend it all, but they actually have to save and plan for the future. Is to provide our kids with the education so they can come back later as successful adults and give back to their community.
When this homeless teen gets this package, how do you think it'll make them feel?
Well, I honestly feel it's like a big hug in the little package. So as soon as they open it, it's like, you know, like somebody cares for them. And it makes them feel good, like, you know, they actually matter in this world, they're not just alone.
He likes to help his family out. How many people want to help their family out?
Received a lot of support, a lot of guidance, and you know, I was able to do everything that the program entitled.
There's a lot of things that we can do, such as, you know, fuel other ministries and other good cause projects, feed people, clothe people, teach people things, give them opportunities such as this.
But if you look at the chart all the way on the right-hand side, you're going to see our purple and green style chart. In the very low valley section, the question that was actually answered the lowest in the pretest is in the purple area. In the post-test, which is in the green area, the topics we covered the most didn't get a significant improvement in the overall knowledge within that one question. We covered that specific point over 5 times during the event. We covered it at the beginning of the event, again at the end of the event, and it was also touched upon several times at many of the booths. And basically, that question was to 16, 17, and also 18-year-olds. If you begin saving $100 and investing it right now, each and every month, can you become a millionaire? Well, As we showed the charts, we did demonstrations of compounding interest, and the actual volunteers that were interacting with them showed them the same thing. In fact, there was a chart in their student guide that showed how compounding interest can grow $100 saved and invested each and every month into $1 million by the time they reached about retirement age. And yet, we covered it 5 times more than any other topic, and yet we did not get the improvement that we wanted. Could you possibly think or have any ideas of why this may be the case? Well, honestly, we didn't either. And at the end of it, we didn't understand why that was. And here's what we found. So pre and post tests, sometimes they'll give you the data, but you don't understand the reasons why that wasn't successful. So it's a tool that we can use to go back to the students, whomever we're serving. The Simon Scholars and the Simon Family Foundation help young people in need. They also assist young individuals who come from underserved populations and give them the opportunity to go to college through their scholarship program. But what the data simply came down to was that they didn't believe that it could actually happen for them. We had to discuss this information and all the facts with them and help them to understand that $100 right now might be tough. But when they eventually get out of high school and graduate from college, they might be able to save the $100. And when we asked this question to them in a different format and a different way, the response became, yes, I think I can save that money. So they understood that point, but ultimately they still did not do well on the result. And basically, it was because a lot of these young people came from challenging upbringings to where they never thought they had a chance at ever being financially secure. So this year, we asked the same question again, but this time we let them know about their past results. We showed them what they did on their test. People just did not believe that this was the case. Here's the numbers, here's the facts. Why wouldn't you believe it? We got a lot of great feedback this year, but before we even entered the show, we talked to the students. We got feedback from them, so we understood that they didn't believe that concept. So in the class, we shared with them. We did more of a case study with them, as well as a presentation. And this year, our results were much higher. So, pre and post tests are great. But when you know you've covered the subject, it's your job as an educator to figure out why the students did not understand or get that concept. It could be a variety of different reasons. As you get more experience, you'll be able to proactively address that, so you'll never make that mistake again. But it's always a good learning tool for you as an educator to review these charts. It's very easy to make these type of charts as well, and it gives you that visualization. If you're just reading through the surveys and the pre and post test results, it's really hard to figure out if people are better than they were before. But when you create reports like this that show pass-fail questions, they got right and they got wrong, it really helps you as an educator see the areas clearly. So when we make the reports easily visually stimulating for us, we can see the results right here and understand, hey, this is where we succeeded and this is where we failed.
Also, this makes a very professional thing to give to those that you're doing events for. You might be doing this for your own. It doesn't need to be so pretty for yourself, but why not just take that extra little step and share it with whoever you're serving? That nonprofit, that school, that employer, that corporation. If you're doing workplace type of things, whoever you're serving, putting together a clear report like this, it just gives you the edge.
What you'll find is that they will share this report with others. So you're building your reputation virally. You're giving them this in a PDF format, and they're emailing it to the board of directors. They're emailing it to people that they're supporting, their organization. They're becoming familiar with you, your brand, and what you're offering. So that's another benefit. One other thing I want to discuss on here is the middle section in the writing, and what we had the students do on the survey is the same. What did you like about the event? What you didn't like? And we share with the organizations we serve what they didn't like. We just don't stop there. We say how we're going to improve it next time. So at this event, the students weren't too happy about standing for 3 hours. We had seats for half of them, and they could rotate, but everybody wanted to sit. So this year's event, we added seats so everybody could sit. And just some of the minor things, the music was too loud, some other things like that, which were easily adjustable. So we showed them what changes they wanted us to make, and then we talked about it below. Here's how we suggest to make that change for next year. So already they're starting to think about next year's event. We'd like to annualize and do reoccurring events. This is really critical. And reports like this will help you analyze and get those reoccurring reports because it shows that you're willing to make that commitment to always improve the program. In addition, it's a lot easier to do an event the second time than it was the first time because the first time you have to build those relationships, get volunteers if you need them, plan out the day, know who to talk to, figure out about the venue and all that stuff. Next year, you're going to have a lot of that information in place. So instead, maybe you can focus on sponsors or doing different things or bringing in a guest speaker. The third year gets even easier. So every year or every time you do an event, it gets easier and easier because you built up the infrastructure to do it effectively. Now, we also use this measurement with volunteers as well because we have very high-level volunteers. People from the chamber, people from financial planning institutions, and people from credit repair places. So we had people in there reviewing our material, reviewing the entire event, and giving their feedback. So you're able to make a lot of adjustments there. So not only for those of you that are doing larger events that require volunteers and different people helping you out, have surveys for them as well because it's very critical to get their opinion. They're supporting you. You want them to continue to support it. And again, it goes back to creating an event with somebody. When they understand that their feedback is important and that you're considering what they're suggesting in the next event, it makes them feel empowered and important, and they want to help you more, which is great. And also that leads to helping the movement.
When they think you're the best person suited for whatever it is you're doing, people want to get behind you. They want to promote you, within that community. So when you're acting professional, doing great measurements, putting together nice reports, don't take too much time. In fact, when we use some of our interns to put those types of reports together, man, they're great with graphics. They're great with that kind of stuff. So it's an easy way to actually put together very nice reports inexpensively. I hope that was helpful with the report. I'll be moving on from here. So right now, I want you to give you a framework to quantify the results. Again, I talked about this before. How successful was your program? Oh, pretty successful and so forth. I'm going to give you another framework. So you could say, not only have I increased the learning of the pre and post-test results by 25%, not only in the longer-term measurement improved by 20%, but here's where we think they are in their thinking skills. So we're going to talk about Bloom's taxonomy of higher order thinking skills and depth of knowledge levels. You can utilize these terms and terminology in your reports and when you talk to people. So this is a way we can quantify, again, where they're at on their education level. Let's start with Bloom's.
It's an approach that allows an educator to assess where a student is at on their education level. At their very bottom, we have just general knowledge, and at the very top, we have evaluation. I'm going to break those down here on the next slide. And Bloom basically suggests that people move through these 6 stages of learning. So we want to always be pushing them up this triangle here. So from knowledge level all the way to the evaluation level. And I asked this before. I think it was a little mixed up on the file. But what outcomes may you expect on a 1-hour class? What about a 20-hour program? What about a long-term mentorship program? So I want you guys to think about that, those questions. The last 3 at the bottom here as we go up to the next slide. So I'm going to walk you through all of these. So ask those questions to those questions, those 3 questions at the bottom here. What results might you expect from a 1-hour class, a 20-hour program, and a mentorship program? Just enter them into the chat below. So at the very basic level, we have knowledge, They might be able to regurgitate some definitions or something like that.
And I think a lot of what's out there in the financial literacy space is helping people get knowledge. Is it good? Yeah, any education is good. Is it great? No, I don't think so because it just gives them that very basic level to where they might know some questions, some basic terms, or facts or just basic things involved with the topic of financial literacy. They won't know how to use it or take action or change their lives with it, but they'll understand when they get a credit card offer in the mail what APR is defined as, annual percentage rate. How will that benefit them? I don't think it really will. That's why we're going to put them into the next level, which is comprehension.
This is where they're actually understanding the facts and the concepts behind that knowledge. They're able to organize that information in a way that's more relevant. Still may not be usable, but they're able to comprehend it on a deeper level besides memorization. So they may understand that APR is annual percentage rate, and it has something to do with the interest rate on their credit card or how much they'll pay a month. So they may have that basic understanding. The application phase is what we're getting into usable data for them. So in this application phase, they're starting to think about it in different ways. Okay, I know. You know APR relates to my credit card interest rate and payments. Well, here's what I'm going to do when I look for a credit card to get. I'm going to really look at these different factors before I end up choosing a credit card.
So they're starting to apply that information that they're getting. Same thing in the analysis stage. They're breaking it down even further. So maybe there's similar offers they're able to compare or contrast. What's going to be better for them? And then in the synthesis stage, they're able to form solutions and knowledge base of what they learn. And they're going to have that confidence to be able to make that decision, whatever that may be in the future. When we're talking about credit cards here, they're going to understand how to make that decision, which one to go with, what they think will be better for them. In this stage, they may too start to consider things like flight miles or bonus points or annual payments and different things. So all of these teaser introductory rates, they may start to think, okay, I can get this credit card for 6 months and transfer it over to this credit card that has 0% interest for 6 months. And they may start to do something like that. So the final stage, the evaluation stage, they're able to make very confident and informed judgments on the information. That's critical. That's where we want to get them. Again, the ability to make confident, informed decisions that help lead them toward their personal financial goals is what we're doing as educators. That's our role, is to get them to that evaluation stage. Yeah, good. Yeah, exactly. Good. Good job, everybody. 1 hour class. Yay, you're basically knowledge level. Maybe a little comprehension if you just focus on one topic. You know the 10-hour class. I'm thinking the middle stages and analysis and application. Again, as long as you're not teaching too broad a range of coursework. So if you start at the very basics and go to advanced investing, we can get them to the analysis and application stage within 10 hours. And then above that, the mentorship program. Done the right way. We're definitely getting them into the synthesis and evaluation, in that action stage where they're making those decisions and tying this in with the trans-theoretical model. They're at those stages. They're taking an action and utilizing the information that you've been teaching them. So why do I show you this? It helps you as an educator, understand where your class is. Again, anytime we can quantify results, and I like to use visuals in my report, and even show the explanations there, because it helps people understand where that classroom grew to in their thinking skill sets within the topics you're discussing. This is really critical. So quantifying basically not only helps you understand the participants better, being able to put them into a very clear, concise arena, but also highlights your expertise. A lot of people you talk to won't have an understanding of this. so you can take some time to explain this process to them. It will help you get additional events. If that's what you are seeking, or it just helps you come off more professionally when you're talking to sponsors, funders, partners, different people at that, they're going to say, you know, this person really knows what they are doing.
Again, most financial educator training coursework out there is simply an instructor reading a piece of paper, going through the curriculum. We didn't want to do with this with our instructor training. We want ours to be the best, the brightest, the most revered trainers out there. And so we really want you to understand these fundamentals and how to explain yourself in a way that shows your professionalism, that shows you went through coursework they gave you in this training, which is very, very key. So again, in all your reports and everything like that, you want to include where you feel these students graduated to and be very honest in your assessment as well. There's always room for growth, okay? So if it didn't go as far as you wanted, that's okay. Be very honest and say, these are the changes I'm going to make for the next time. So not only will it help you on the outreach, it will help you personally.
And it's great to see somebody come into a class that has no knowledge at all. And then, after 12 weeks, you know that they're able to make key decisions that will benefit them. So they're going to know if they accept a credit card offer or not. They're going to know what student loans to choose. They're going to know what house loan to choose, or to buy a house or to not buy a house. Whatever that course you're teaching, you'll have that confidence in what you taught them.
While many in the educational field go with Bloom's, the introduction of the Common Core depth of knowledge has been introduced. This new framework was developed by Norman Webb and helps assess cognitive rigor of material. You will notice many similarities to Bloom's, and it can also be used to help you measure and assess students' lesson plans and programming. Webb's depth of knowledge, or DOK, measures the degree to which the participants understand and assess questions. There are 4 DOK levels: recall, skills, strategic thinking, and extended thinking. Let's break them down. Level 1, recall. These lesson plans have students recall information like name, fact, quote, or other basic pieces of information. In Level 1, they also should be performing basic calculations or applying a formula. Take a look at the chart to see some of the words associated with the recall level. This is similar to the knowledge level in Bloom's theory. Now, Level 2, skill concept. Level 2 activities have participants connecting information in the recall group to being able to solve a problem. Lesson plans in this level have participants developing relationships between concepts and interpret data. This higher level of activities is similar to Bloom's application and comprehension levels. Level 3 is strategic thinking. These activities require higher cognitive rigor like planning, reasoning, and having the participants explain through the process used to derive the answer. See the chart to learn about the verbs that describe this level of thinking. Level 4 is extended thinking. At this level, participants are given questions that require complex reasoning, analysis, and they have the ability to connect lessons with other concepts. This is like Bloom's analysis and synthesis stage, where participants display a higher order thinking level. Make sure you spend time reviewing the DOK chart. We suggest as you put together your curriculum for your class to refer to this chart to ensure that you're touching on those higher depth of knowledge concepts.
What I'm going to share with you right now is a game that we play that really helps people understand the loan qualification process. And again, the reason I want to share this with you is to show you that we can start the education process from higher levels of learning. When we're using Bloom's or the depth of knowledge, we can actually start out from the higher stages of comprehension. For instance, on this loan game, let's refer to Bloom's. This activity starts out at the application and analysis stage, and then we work back through the comprehension level. Many beginning educators think you need to help them comprehend the material, define what they're going to get into and what they're going to be learning before you get to the higher levels. But I'm going to show you in this example right now, you don't need to do that. And in the loan game, we basically, again, put people in that role of being that underwriter, but we break it down to a personal level to where one of their friends is asking them to borrow money. And that's a very common situation, especially in today's age. Friends asking for another friend to borrow money. So in this game, I'm going to use very low, easy numbers to remember just for this example. But let's say you have a friend that wants to borrow $1,000. And the basic question we pose to the audience, hey, would you lend your friend $1,000? And then we cover his current financial situation. Let's say he has $200 saved currently, but he needs to buy a new car because his car broke down. We also understand that he makes $1,000 a month. He has, let's say, $2,000 in credit card debt, and his total monthly payments come to just rent and insurance and those different things come to $1,200. And so we ask the participants, would you lend him money based on these facts? And we hear responses back. And when you pose that question, you'll hear a lot of different responses. Some people say, yeah, I would lend him money because he's my friend. I want to help him out. Other people would say, no, I'm not going to lend him money. Now, I'm his friend. I want to help and support him. Maybe I'll give him a few bucks, but I'm not going to lend him that $1,000 he's requesting. So you hear a lot of responses. When you get those responses back, then we can actually dive into those deeper levels and we can ask questions like, well, what if he had $5,000 that was coming to him, but he couldn't access it right now? Or let's say he made $3,000 a month and he didn't have any debt. Would you lend him money then? Or maybe even ask, hey, he has a computer system that's worth $3,000. If he put that up as collateral, would you lend him the money then? So we can really engage the audience in some very interesting conversation where they're thinking how they would react personally. What would they do in that situation? And it's a very small scenario as opposed to talking about qualifying for a car loan or qualifying for a mortgage. The interesting thing is, though, the concepts are the same. It just makes it easier for them to internalize and relate to. You see what we didn't do here? We didn't start talking about, okay, this is an asset in defining that. This is a collateral in defining that. No, instead, we took it from, hey, this is their situation, and introduce those terms organically into that conversation. You got to really think about your audience. They're a lot smarter and can decipher things on their own. So we don't need to break it down to getting them memorizing definitions before we get into the bigger picture lessons on what we want them to take away. Always remember that. So you don't need to start with the very basics. We can introduce the concept and what we really want them to learn, and then interject those other things, that other knowledge that we want them to gain as well. The definitions, the terms, and other things that are used in there. So, again, with this example, we're getting them into the higher stages of Bloom's and the depth of knowledge right away because they're seeing how that relates to their personal life. Even if you're not trying to qualify for a loan, you can use this to qualify your friends and loved ones who may ask you for money. This is very common, especially in the economic situation today. So with these different activities, we want to give them practical skills so they can learn the basics of loans. So not only when they're trying to purchase a car, a home, or anything that requires that process, but also on that personal level when they're trying to evaluate if they want to lend friends or family members money. These activities can be fun and it can serve them in many areas of their life.
We covered a lot today, but we're not done with the topic of measurement yet. As you know by now, this is a critical component of developing a financial education program. In fact, The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau recently put out a document that calls for rigorous evaluation of financial capability strategies. Join us in the next video to learn more about additional measurement tools and resources that will truly set you apart as a professional educator.